came to Thanksgiving and heard them laughing at me. "He's a total loser." "Oh, what you doing here?" Mom said. I said, "Really? Then pack your things, you don't live here anymore." I knew things weren't great between me and my parents, but it was Thanksgiving. A day about family, about putting aside differences. I wanted to believe that at the end of the day, they were still my parents, and I was still their son. That meant something. At least I thought it did. The past year had been hard. Ever since they had lost their house to the bank, they had been looking for someone to blame, and of course they chose me. Never mind that they had spent recklessly for years, taking out loans they couldn't pay back, buying things they didn't need, living far beyond their means. None of that mattered. In their minds I was the villain. Because I had money. Because I had a big house. Because I wouldn't let them move in. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. My parents have always been difficult. They fight all the time, complain about everything, and seem to revel in negativity. I grew up in that environment, and I knew exactly what it would do to my son. He's only 3 years old. There was no way I was going to let him grow up hearing their constant bitterness, absorbing their toxicity. But I helped them. I paid for them to live in a luxury apartment, $4,000 a month. A beautiful place, in a prime location, modern and spacious. It had everything they needed. I thought they'd be grateful. They weren't. Instead, they took it as an insult. "How can we live in an apartment when you have a house?" They were offended that I wouldn't let them take over my house, that I had a pool they couldn't use, that I had space they couldn't claim. It was exhausting. Every conversation turned into a guilt trip, so eventually I stopped getting involved. I let them be. Still, I wanted to try. It was Thanksgiving. I thought maybe we could make a fresh start. I bought a nice turkey, her favorite sides, and even a bottle of wine I knew my mother liked. I still had the keys to her apartment just in case, so I figured I'd surprise her with something good. As soon as I walked in, I heard laughter. I paused in the foyer, shifting the turkey in my hands. My mother's voice rang out, clear as day. "He's a total loser. Can you believe how selfish he is? He has everything and still won't let us in. Imagine having such a big house and making your parents live in an apartment. What kind of son does that?" Someone else laughed. My grandmother. "Unbelievable," she said. "And after all you did for him." I felt my stomach drop. I must have made some kind of noise, because suddenly my mother's tone changed. "Oh, you?" Her voice was sharp, unimpressed. "What are you doing here?" She wasn't happy. She wasn't surprised in a good way. It wasn't even embarrassment at being caught talking behind my back. Just irritation, like I was intruding. I took a breath. I set the turkey down on the counter. "Is that what you think of me?" My voice was calm, but something inside broke. The silence in the room was deafening. The laughter was gone. The smugness on my mother's face had faded slightly, but she still stood there, arms folded, chin raised, as if daring me to say something. My grandmother looked away, suddenly uninterested in the conversation. My father was at the dinner table, drinking a beer as if none of this concerned him. And the others? My aunt, my uncle, they just sat there, quiet, avoiding eye contact. No one wanted to intervene. No one wanted to defend me. I let out a little laugh and shook my head. "Is that what you think of me?" I repeated, though this time it wasn't really a question. I wasn't looking for an answer. My mother sighed and waved her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Martin. You know it's true." I set the turkey down on the counter, my hands suddenly feeling too tight around the plastic bag. I'd spent time picking it out, buying all the sides, thinking about what they'd like. I had come to this apartment ready to let go of the past and try to move forward, and here they were laughing at me, calling me a loser behind my back. I exhaled slowly. "You know what? Vacation's over. Pack your things. You don't live here anymore." The whole room froze. My mother narrowed her eyes. "Excuse me? You heard me," I said, my voice calm. "You have 3 days to get out." My father, who had been perfectly content to pretend he wasn't a part of this, finally looked up. Martin Dash. I cut him off. No. I pay $4,000 a month for this place. $4,000 out of my own pocket. And what do I get? You sit here and laugh at me? Calling me a loser? Talking about how selfish I am when I literally saved you from being homeless? I shook my head. No. I'm done. If you can't appreciate what I did for you, you can't have it. My mother actually laughed. Oh, you think you can just kick us out? Where are we going to go? Not my problem, I said simply. Maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to spit on the one person who was keeping a roof over your head. She turned to my father, expecting him to back her up. But he didn't say a word. He just stared at his beer. Maybe even he knew there was nothing to say. My grandmother stood up and adjusted her sweater. Now, Martin, let's not be rash. I turned to her. Rash? Grandmother, I came here to make peace. I came here with food, with a bottle of wine, thinking maybe today would be different. And this is what I walk into. I gestured at my mother. She's not even sorry. She's just mad that I caught her. My aunt and uncle got up and grabbed their coats. They didn't want to get involved. One by one, they slipped out the door, not wanting to be a part of what was about to happen. Cowards. Only my grandmother stayed. Martin, she said, a little softer now. They are your parents. And I'm their son. I shot back. But apparently that doesn't mean anything to them. My mother crossed her arms. So that's it? You're just going to kick us out? I shrugged. You already think I'm a loser, don't you? I guess I'm just living up to your expectations. She scoffed, shaking her head, looking at my father, my grandmother, anyone, as if she couldn't believe what was happening. Like I was the bad guy here. You're going to regret this, she finally said. No, I told her. I won't. Then I turned and walked out the door. As soon as I got home, I emailed the landlord to let him know that my parents were vacating the apartment. The lease was in my name, so it was my responsibility to give notice. I already knew I was going to lose the $4,000 security deposit, but at that moment I didn't care. It was worth it. I should have known they wouldn't go away quietly. That night, my phone started ringing. First my mom, then my father, then my grandmother. I ignored each call, each message. It wasn't until my grandmother left a voicemail that I finally listened. Martin, I know you're upset, but think about what you're doing. It's the holidays. Family forgives. Call me back. I didn't call her back. The next morning they showed up. First it was my dad. I opened the door to find him standing there, hands in his pockets, looking down at the floor. He wasn't an emotional man, but I could tell he was uncomfortable. Look, Martin, we didn't mean what we said. You know how your mom is. She just talks. I crossed my arms. She didn't just talk. She laughed. At Grandma. With everyone else in the room. And you just sat there. He sighed and rubbed his temple. I don't want to argue with you. Then don't, I said. Pack your bags. You've got 2 days. He looked at me for a long moment, then shook his head. You'll regret this. I slammed the door in his face. On the second day, my mother tried. She showed up with a whole different approach, tears. Lots of them. You're breaking my heart, Martin. You're really going to put your own mother out on the street? On Thanksgiving? I almost laughed. Thanksgiving was yesterday. And yes, I am. Find another place to live. We don't have another place. You could have had this one if you weren't so ungrateful. I shot back. But I'm tired of paying for people who hate me. Go live with Grandma. She gasped, as if I had suggested something offensive. Martin, don't be ridiculous. We can't stay with her. There's no room. Then figure it out, I said. Just like I had to figure out my own life without anyone giving me anything. The tears dried up quickly after that. She stormed off, screaming that I was selfish, that I was heartless, that no matter how much money I had, I'd always be alone. Cool. As long as I didn't pay her rent, I could live with it. By the third day, they were desperate. This time it wasn't my parents. It was my grandmother. She showed up at my house, unannounced. My wife was home, and I could tell she was uncomfortable when I let Grandma in. "Martin," she said, lowering herself on my couch, her voice softer than before. "This isn't right. You know that." I sat across from her. "What's not right? That I paid your rent for a year while you sat there calling me a loser?" She shook her head. "People say things in private that they don't always mean. You shouldn't have eavesdropped." I almost laughed. "You think this is my fault?" She sighed. "You punish them too harshly. They don't respect me," I said. "Why should I continue to support them? Because they are your parents." I stared at her. "No. Respect is earned and they haven't earned it. They don't get to treat me like garbage while they live off my money. It doesn't work that way." She pressed her lips together and shook her head. "At least give them more time. A week. Let them find another place." I sighed. Grandma was the only one I actually respected. Even after hearing her laugh at me, I still had a soft spot for her. "3 more days," I finally said. "Not a week. 3 days and that's it." She nodded. "That's all I ask?" I walked her to the door, but before she left she turned to me. "Martin, I hope you know this isn't over. Your mother is stubborn. She won't forget this." I smiled. "Neither will I." I made sure to tell the landlord that my parents were leaving, and on the last day I went to the apartment myself to make sure they were gone. I didn't want to take their word for it. When I arrived, the apartment was a disaster. Dishes piled in the sink. Overflowing garbage bags. Random furniture left behind like they didn't care. My parents stood in the middle of it all, their suitcases packed, but their expressions anything but apologetic. My mother sat on the couch, arms crossed, glaring at me. My father stood by the window, avoiding eye contact. My grandmother wasn't there this time. This was just between us now. "Well," my mother said, "I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted." I ignored her and looked around. "Where's the rest of your stuff?" She scoffed. "Oh, we had to sell some of it since we don't have a place to live anymore." "Not my problem." "And the garbage?" I gestured at the mess. My dad finally spoke. "The landlord can take care of that. You're losing your deposit anyway." That pissed me off more than anything. The complete lack of responsibility. They didn't even have the decency to clean up after themselves, even after everything I'd done for them. I let out a short laugh. "You know what? That's okay. Because after today, I'll never clean up your messes again." My mom stood up abruptly. "So that's it? You're just going to wash your hands of us? We're your parents, Martin. You don't do this to your family." "You're right," I said. "Family doesn't do this. Family doesn't sit around and laugh at their son and call him a loser while they live off his money." She clenched her jaw but said nothing. I pulled the apartment keys out of my pocket and threw them on the counter. "The landlord will be here soon to inspect the place. I'll make sure he knows you're gone." With that, I turned and headed for the door. But just as I reached for the handle, my mother spoke again. "You think this is over?" I looked back. "Yeah, I do." She grinned. "Barbara is going to hear about this." I froze for half a second. Barbara. My sister. I hadn't told her yet. She lived a few states away, had her own life, and we didn't talk much. My parents knew she was my one weak spot, the one person whose opinion I actually cared about. And now they were going to drag her into this. I sighed. "Go ahead. Call her. But when you do, make sure you tell her why you're homeless." I didn't wait for an answer. I walked out and didn't look back. Later that night my phone rang. It was Barbara. I was expecting it. I picked it up. "Hey, Martin," she said, exhaling. "What the hell's going on?" I sat back on the couch, already exhausted. I guess Mom called you. Yeah, she did. She said you kicked her out for no reason. I snorted. No reason? That's what she told you. That's why I'm calling you, she said. Because I know there's more to the story. So tell me. And I did. I told her everything. The apartment, the $4,000 in rent I'd been paying, the constant complaints, the way they acted like it wasn't good enough. And finally, the part where I caught them laughing at me and calling me a loser. When I finished, Barbara was silent for a moment. Then she let out a sharp laugh. Unbelievable. So now you know, I said. I didn't just kick them out. You did it to yourself. Yeah, no, I get it, she said. And honestly, I would have done the same thing. I blinked. Wait. You're on my side? Of course I'm on your side, she said. Mom and Dad were always like that. You did way more for them than you should have. And now they want me to step in? No thanks. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. They actually asked you for money? Oh, they didn't just ask, she said. Mom practically demanded that I start sending them $2,000 a month. Like it was my duty or something. I shook my head. So what did you say? I told them no. I grinned. Barbara, I think I love you. She laughed. Yeah? But listen. I don't think they're finished. I have a feeling they're going to try something else. Be ready. I sighed. I always am. Barbara was right. My parents weren't done. For the next few days, they tried everything. First, it was the guilt trips. Long, rambling text messages about how cruel I was. How they were suffering because of me. How no good son would treat his parents this way. When that didn't work, they moved on to insults, calling me heartless, selfish, a failure who thought money could replace family. I ignored it all. But then, they tried something new. One afternoon, I was at home playing with my son when my wife called me from the other room. Her voice was tense. Martin, you need to come here. Now. I walked into the kitchen and saw her standing by the window, holding her phone. What's wrong? She turned the screen toward me. It was a message from my mother. We're outside. Let us in. I stiffened. I walked to the front door, pulled back the curtain, and sure enough, there they were. My parents. Standing on my porch like they belonged there, suitcases beside them. I opened the door, stepping outside before they could invite themselves in. What are you doing here? I asked, keeping my voice even. My mother's face was all fake sweetness. We're here to stay. I let out a small laugh. No, you're not. She sighed like I was being difficult. Martin, come on. We don't have anywhere else to go. Grandma's house is too small. And you have so much space here. I shook my head. Not happening. My dad finally spoke up. We're your parents. You're really gonna let us be homeless? You're not homeless, I said. You're just out of options that don't include taking responsibility for yourselves. That's not the same thing. My mother scoffed. Martin, you're being ridiculous. Just let us in. No. She crossed her arms. You think Barbara is gonna help you forever? She might be on your side now, but wait until she realizes what kind of person you really are. You're gonna end up alone. I smiled. If it means getting away from you, that sounds great. Her expression twisted into pure anger. You're making a mistake. No, you made the mistake, I said. When you laughed at me. When you called me a loser. When you used me. That's when you lost me. She stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed her suitcase. Fine. You don't want us? We don't want you either. She turned and walked down the porch. My dad followed. I watched them go, waiting for the familiar guilt to creep in. Waiting for the regret. But it never came. A few weeks passed, and my parents settled into my grandmother's house, miserable, but not my problem. Barbara and I talked more than we ever had before, laughing about how our parents had expected us to bankroll their lives forever. And me? I slept better than I had in years. Because for the first time in my life, I was free. Weeks turned into months, and I stayed true to my word. I cut them off completely. No more money. No more favors. No more pretending we were ever going to have a normal, loving relationship. My parents ended up exactly where they deserved, living off my grandmother's pension, crammed into her tiny house. They had no luxury apartment, no pool, no handouts. Just each other, stuck in their own bitterness. At first, they tried to act like they were fine. My mother told everyone who would listen that they chose to live with Grandma, that it was just temporary, that soon they'd be back on their feet. But people started seeing through her lies. Barbara and I, we were closer than ever. Cutting off our parents gave us something in common, a sense of relief. She told me they had called her a few times, testing to see if she would crack and send them money, but she held firm. They thought they could manipulate me, she said one day over the phone. But honestly, watching them deal with the consequences of their own actions is so much better than helping them. I laughed. Yeah, I'm sleeping great these days. And it was true. No more guilt. No more fake apologies. No more throwing money into a black hole of their entitlement. They had made their choices. And for the first time in my life, I had made mine. Months later, I got one last message from my mother. A single text. You were never a real son to us. I looked at it for a moment, then deleted it. No anger. No sadness. Just nothing. Because she was right. I wasn't the son they wanted. I was just the son who finally told them no. And I've never been happier.